Sounds good.
Perfect. Right. Action Jackson.
How's it going?
How you doing, man? You good?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, man. I I don't even know where to start with this bike. I've
Yeah.
got fucking it's
That
fucking
makes two
mind
of us.
blowing.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was it was kind of like one of those pipe dream things. Um, it's been a couple years up in my head, and so a lot of things came to actually as we were building it, but
Right.
the whole basis of the build with it was the inertia starter. That's been in my head for a couple of years now, and it was kind of cool. Once we got into BILTWELL, it gave us an opportunity to go, okay, let's try to actually build this thing.
Yeah, man.
So that was pretty cool for
Well,
sure.
take us back to the start with that. Like where did the idea come from? Where take us back to the beginning.
So I'm extremely into like old vintage thing, like mechanical things. I'm kind of a mechanical nerd. My previous career, I worked in engineering with a buddy of mine, Kevin, who actually helped me build this bike. And over the years, growing up as a kid and stuff, I used to go to these museums and stuff all the time. And vintage motorcycles, anything old mechanical, where you have your exposed push rods, you have valves and stuff sticking out. I've always been obsessed with that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like where it all started for me. Um, was just enjoying the old mechanical stuff. But I the inertia started to me like, so I'm also big in aviation,
Right.
vintage aviation, especially like World War II stuff. Obviously, I'm a huge World War II buff, so uh I really liked all that. And I always liked to see these planes, back in the old days, to be cranking these things and firing them up, and you hear that noise. It's that
Yeah.
that noise, that inertia starter. And it was just like, I've always loved that sound, and I've always wanted to like try to find one of these things. And the
Yeah.
last couple of years, I was like, I just started thinking to myself, it'd be really cool to put one of these on a bike. And I actually, I work I run an antique motorcycle company out of my garage, out of my shop here in Pennsylvania, and I primarily deal in old motorcycles, 1910 to 1936. That's our year
Wow.
range. That's what we focus on. Mainly Harley Davidsons, but we'll get into Flying Merkles, Indians, Excelsior, Hendersons, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, so, that kind of goes hand in hand with what we're doing. The old stuff, the old mechanical stuff, and you know, between working on all the old bikes all the time, riding these old bikes all over the country, because we do the motorcycle cannonball, we do Sons of Speed vintage racing, we do all these events. It kind
Cool.
of was like, okay, let's take one of these old inertia starters and let's do this. Once we found out we got into BILTWELL,
Yeah.
and so what I did is I started looking. So I was doing a ton of research on them, because obviously an airplane starter is going to be pretty big, and
Yeah.
that was my first worry. So I started actually looking at like Model A starters, looking at other companies that made these inertia starters, and there was a slew of other companies that did it. It was just really hard to find,
Yeah, I bet.
because this stuff's like 80, 100 years old on some of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So trying to find one, not only find one, but find one in a working condition, was kind of proven to be a challenge. So um, we ended up finding, I doing some research, and I was on eBay, and I found this Bendix, which is made here in the United States, and it was used on like the Sturman biplanes. It was used on some of the, I guess, I just found this out recently with after posting some videos, but Messerschmitts, like the Me-109s, the German aircraft,
Right. Yeah.
they use them on those, and actually, Germany was getting them from us early on, until obviously we went to war with
Yeah.
them back then. Like that kind of stuff. So they use it on a few different things. But I found one, and I messaged a guy and I said, "Hey man, can you send me some dimensions on this thing? Because
Yeah.
it looked like it would work, but obviously,
Yeah, of
seeing
course.
it in person." So I messaged him. He sent me back some dimensions, and it was a little big, but it still had the electric bell housing starter on the back side of it.
Right.
And I was like, well, I can take that off. I can modify this thing. All I wanted was a hand crank portion.
Yeah.
So I pulled the trigger on it. I ended up getting it for a pretty good price. I thought it was like $300, which was
Sick.
cheap now. Yeah,
Yeah.
because like there's a few on there right now, and they're like over 1,000.
Yeah.
But so I got this thing in the mail. It showed up. I was super excited because we couldn't start the build until this thing showed up. Because
So
literally,
you started looking for it after being accepted for BILTWELL.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So
hilarious.
yeah, so like, because I kind of completely changed direction because
Yeah.
I had a pan head. The motor that I use for the bike is a 48 pan,
Mhm.
and I pulled it out of a garage in Florida almost a year ago to the day that I finished the bike.
Right.
Um, I was going down to Sons of Speed. We are going down to race the old bikes, and my buddy calls me. He goes, "Hey man, I got this guy. He's got a 48 pan head, and it was just like a total basket case, just the motor."
Right.
I'm like, okay, like, what's he want for it? Obviously, everybody wants a panhead, but it's always cost related,
Yeah.
So uh, he ended up, it was a super good deal, one I couldn't pass up. So I went over there, and the guy ended up having not just the motor, but it was the whole bike. It was like the frame, a
Right.
roller,
Cool.
all these tins, all this stuff. So I was like, oh my god, the guy was going through a divorce. He just wanted to get rid of this stuff. So I snagged the motor from him with my buddy George and Tom. We loaded up in my truck, and I kind of just brought it home and set it on the shelf with the other project I got.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like you always got a lot. So uh, I applied for BILTWELL. Once we found out we got in, I was thinking like before I got in, I was thinking what I was going to do with the panels. I was going to do like a lowrider style bike. I've always
Yeah.
wanted to do. I'm a huge fan of like the Mexican culture and
Mm.
like the West Coast style bikes where they're all lowered and slammed out,
Yeah.
and they're like a lot of people call them like cholo bikes and stuff.
Yeah.
I really like that look. So that was the original plan. Was I was going to build like a 48 lowrider panhead
Sick.
to kind of pay homage to that. But once I found out I got in, I was like, man, uh, maybe this is the time to do my crazy inertia starter build. That
Yeah.
I've been thinking about. So, that's when we started down the road and went and looked for the inertia starter, and I found that one on eBay, and that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Yeah,
Fuck.
yeah, I know. It's like
Yeah.
it's kind of nuts, and it's like it all kind of just started rolling downhill from there because I'm always, some previous builds I've done. The last build I did last year, I took a Pan America motor, brand new Harley Pan America, and I put it in an FXR chassis, an '86 FXR, and
Right.
you know, everybody was like, "Oh, that's crazy," It's like, well, I just like to, I'm not like out there trying to like prove a point or anything. What
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do is I,
Yeah.
I just like to challenge myself and just see what our capabilities, like how far we can push the envelope. And I just like doing it.
Yeah.
That's what I like to do is I like to do stuff that makes you use your mind and have to think kind of outside the box. So
So what about this frame? The fucking frame is
yeah, so,
equally as crazy.
yeah, so that just worked out really well for what we're doing. But so that you're not going to believe me when I tell you, but I actually got the inspiration from the frame from a chair. Um,
Right. Cool.
because I was originally obviously like once we got the inertia starter, I was going to build a tube frame, like a tube
Yeah.
chassis, like we've done in the past, and um, I was thinking, I was like, man, you know, I'd like to, since we're doing this bike kind of over the top with having this starter on, it's already going to be kind of crazy. So we might as well just keep it going. So I was looking through some different ideas and I was kind of browsing through the internet and I came across this crazy ad. I don't know, you might even have seen them. There's these guys making like they're like a shop chair, like a Viper chair or something they call them. And they're all laser cut sheet metal and they're like
Right.
kind of
Cool.
like bolted together.
Yeah.
And I just came across the ad and I saw the back of this chair and it was like a skeletized, you know, looking sheet metal thing. And I'm like, man, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I ran it by my buddy Kevin. I was like, hey, we should make this frame out of, plate steel instead of doing tube. I was like, let's laser cut the whole dang frame.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's like, oh, I don't know. He's like, that's a big chunk of sheet metal. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, if we can't do it, we can't do it. But I was like, let's try. So we went down that avenue. We mirrored it completely we sized it to a complete stock panhead,
Right.
chassis frame.
Yeah.
And what we did is we actually ended up lowering the rear axle plates about 2 inches because I wanted the bike to sit lower.
Yeah.
And we incorporate some of that old school vintage styling, running the single loop down like the old vintage bikes that we do, like
Yeah.
our board track bikes and stuff. That runs down underneath the motor, big single loop. And originally I was gonna, I weld every day and stuff. I was just gonna work on a gusset and weld it. And Kevin actually threw the idea out there. He's like, you're real big into the vintage, like old industrial, like rivet and
Yeah.
mechanical look. Let's do hardware. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, first thing that pops in my head is like, man, you're trying to break me, like that's
Yeah.
gonna be a lot of hardware. It's like this is gonna be expensive, So uh once I got past that whole this is gonna be a lot of money thing, and I was like, man, that would look kind of cool, because
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
take it another step further.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure nobody's ever bolted a frame together, at least not the last time I
No.
checked. So
Yeah.
um
Not that many fucking bolts anyway.
yeah, but at least it's semi safely, I guess, as
Yeah.
safely as possible. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how where it all came from. But we literally started. Once they got that inertia started, that's where we started. Was the starter. That's where the whole bike design started.
Awesome.
And like I said, we just mirrored that panhead frame so that we could get all that. We had a model of a panhead engine already, and the whole bike, the frame portion of the bike was all done in SolidWorks CAD software prior to us pulling the trigger on this stuff. And
Right. Cool.
um, that's sort of we just kind of went down that road and further progressed and made some changes along the way, obviously. Um, but yeah, that's where we started at.
That's cool.
Sorry,
So,
man.
so you had the idea, but what you didn't have it wasn't like a fucking. So everyone started
What?
different. You know what I mean? Some guys have got like a set fucking plan. They've just stuck to it no matter what. But I
Right.
mean, you'd think with this build, you would have thought it was a fucking. Do you know what I mean?
In my
Every
Yeah,
detail down to a T would have been stuck to, but you say
yeah,
different.
it's like I have like this weird thing, man. It's like once I get like the overall premise in my mind.
Yeah,
Like right now, I already have the next one in my head, like what I'm going to do.
cool.
And I have like an overall idea of what I want to achieve or what we're trying to do, and the rest of it just kind of like comes to me as we're going. And there's a lot of times we have to pivot or swing or do something different,
Yeah,
but I can honestly say with this one, this is the first bike I've ever got to build where I'm like 100% satisfied the way it turned out.
yeah, cool.
From what I was thinking it would be
Yeah,
to what it looks like in person. I'm a very strong critic on myself as far as whenever I finish something, I'm like, man, that's not good enough.
I
And
relate
this
to
is
that.
kind of yeah.
Yeah,
So it's like it was tough, but and there's a lot of long nights on this one and a lot of hours, and it just there was some times where I was like, man, what am I doing? Because
yeah, man.
no matter what you do, you always have the naysayers and the negative feedback, and
Yeah,
you can't make everybody happy, kind of deal. And I kind of take some of that to heart when I know I shouldn't, but we're human. It
I'm the
it
same, man.
happens,
I'm the exact
you
same.
know.
I'm a sensitive
Yeah,
soul. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And it, I was speaking, I was speaking about this the other day. I'm sure it was to just keeping tabs, and I was saying like it's crazy. Like it doesn't matter how fucking good of a build it is, how fucking perfect. There's still these weird snakes in the grass just waiting to like hate on it.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
so
yeah.
it's so weird to me. Like because my brain doesn't work that way. You know, if I
I
see something
know.
I don't like, I move on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
how I am, man. It's
yeah.
like I don't have that hate in me to be like, you suck. This is stupid. Like
Exactly.
I give I always look at something like I don't care if I like it or not. I always look at something and I can see the work that person put into it, and that's what I
Exactly.
respect out of it.
You can appreciate the craft. Yeah, even if it's
Right,
not your cup of tea. Totally.
right,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So that's hard to see, but it's there's a saying on Instagram, post and ghost. I guess I gotta start practicing that a little better.
Yeah,
But
nah, yeah.
you know,
I'm yeah, I totally get you.
yeah.
So were there any parts of the? I mean, was there any moments where you didn't think you were going to be done in time?
Oh man, yeah, like the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It was rough. There was like, because I'm like a extremely like regimented like schedule kind of guy.
Cool.
Because like I run my own business and stuff, so it's like you have to have kind of have that mindset. And when I set out to do something, I try my best to make sure I can do it.
Mhm.
I don't want to be the guy that's like, hey, get the reputation for not being able to do what you set out to do. So I take
Yeah.
that pretty seriously. But at the same time, I wanted to try to bring as much as I could to it when I was building it. So there was a lot of stress for sure. There was a lot of days I questioned why the heck I'm doing it. There's a lot of days that I was like, man, this is dumb. Why am I doing this at all? Like,
Yeah.
it's just between the negative comments and like people. And don't get me wrong, it's not all negative. There's also a ton of good stuff out
Yeah. Of
there.
course. Yeah.
But it all just kind of starts hitting you, in, especially towards the end.
Yeah.
But we ran into some stuff. So that motor I got, that 48 motor, it was in really bad shape. So it was a basket case motor, and I knew that when I bought it. It was together,
Yeah.
but it was just slightly pulled together. So uh, my buddy George and his neighbor, they live like 4 miles from my house here. We wanted to do this entire build in house. Like, there's
Cool.
not a single part of this we farm out. The only thing I really bought, like major critical component wise, was the wheels. Everything else on that bike we did.
Right.
Um, so we have like a little team of like four of us that usually do stuff. So I wanted to try to keep this completely within our wheelhouse and do everything in house. So George and Gary did the motor for me, and I started getting phone calls. They had the motor for about 6 months. So I'm building
Yeah.
literally like the whole rest of this bike while they had the motor, and my
Fuck.
cases were they were garbage. We had to weld the cases, I think, 4 or 5 times, machine them,
Oh
new
man.
motor mount tabs. The bottom of the cases were cracked in a few spots. All the cam bushings, everything had to be pulled out. We had to remake all the cam bushings and everything. Um, it was just a nightmare, and like towards the end, it got, really bad because some stuff wasn't fitting correctly.
Yeah.
Some of the parts that I bought for the motor, like cam gears and stuff. And luckily, George, my buddy that helped with the motor, he's got like a massive pile of parts over at his place.
Cool.
And, he's a big antique guy too, so he just was able to go into a stash, and the stuff that I got that didn't work, he was able to put his stuff in there. So it really helped out. I would have been
Right.
pretty much screwed without those guys.
So did
Excuse
it
me,
did it
but
actually turn out to be a good deal? Like, you said you got the panel for a good deal. Once you got in there,
oh yeah, yeah,
was it
because
kind of
like
like,
I'll just tell you. So
yeah.
like I got the entire bike for $2,500.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was a good deal.
Um,
Doesn't matter what shape it
yeah,
was in. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
no
Ah,
matter what I did, I couldn't go wrong with that. Like
yeah, no, that's
hand head
amazing.
cases right now, yeah, they sell cases sell for 5 grand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had the whole thing. I had the heads, the cylinders, everything. So
Oh, yeah, okay.
um,
Cool. That's not
yeah,
bad then.
so it worked out. But yeah, so the motor got down right down the wire. I was down there at the end of it, like the last week and a half. I was down there. I was helping them bore the cylinders out. We were honing the cylinders because, like I said, we did everything right there. Uh, all the machining on the cases and stuff were done, but we still had to fit everything. Um, I had some push rod tubes made, some custom push rod tubes made from a guy off Instagram, Exotic Choppers. He hand engraved them, made them out of brass for me and stuff. They were super nice,
Yeah.
but they were a little bit too long, so I had to like cut those down and like fit them. And like everything at the very end like needed fit and finish.
Yeah.
Nothing just went in. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, obviously that added a ton of time to the motor. Um, but that was a big stressor because I was staying down there working till 2 in the morning, and then
Yeah.
waking up at like 5 a.m. and doing it all over again.
Fuck.
And so that was probably like some of the worst part of it. A lot of the other stuff was like the parts that I was having cut or whatever and getting made, and like material coming in on time. Like I had to order a ton of materials and hardware and stuff.
Yeah.
And I had to like everything on the frame, I had to hand machine as far as like all the spacers, all the hardware, all the links. I probably have
Heck.
thousands and thousands of pieces on this thing. So, I have a machine shop here in my garage. And luckily I do because like every time I'd get something, I just have to turn around, go right to the lathe or the mill and start machining and stuff. Like all the gears for the inertia drive, I had to mill all that stuff down. I had to cut keyways. I had to, spacers, shim
Fuck.
everything. Yeah, it was a lot of work, and I was spending like ridiculous amount of hours out here, like pushing to get this done.
Yeah, man. And they had the motor
But
for 6 months.
what's that?
And they had the motor for 6 months. They were doing the motor for 6 months because
Oh yeah, yeah,
that's pretty much the competition, isn't it? Like
oh
that's
yeah.
real
Like
really cutting it. Yeah.
as soon as I got, as soon as I found out I got in, I broke the motor down. I pressed the
Yeah.
flywheels and stuff out of the cases, and I was like checking stuff. And within about 2 weeks of after getting in, they had the motor, and that was the last time I saw it until, like the final couple of weeks where I was going down there helping them put it back together. So, um,
That sounds
yeah, it was a
stressful.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot. It was like now that it's done, obviously it's rewarding, but like,
Yeah.
like I'm trying to remember that mindset I was in, a
Yeah.
couple of
Yeah.
months ago, because it's like, I'm not saying I'll never do it again, but I might like, do something else next year. I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah. Yeah.
yet. To top it all off, I still had the business stuff going on. So like we were racing and doing all that. So I ended up building like another bike from complete scratch in the middle of building this one. Building the whole chassis and a frame and everything for like an old pea shooter to go race in March. And I had to add all
Sick.
that stuff on top of my schedule. So it was a lot for sure.
So is that what you do full time? Like machining, engineering and stuff? Is that
Well, yeah. So like, like I just run this stuff out of the shop. So, what I'll do is I'll build bikes. I build like antique bikes for our team that we race because like we race in the Campbell and Sons of Speed. Um, and then I'm in charge. We have like 700, a little over 800 now part numbers, SKUs,
wow.
um, for my company, Competition Distributing, and we sell like all this little parts all the way up to like frames and stuff for antique
Awesome.
bikes. So it's I have to, whatever I don't do here as far as like machining or finish machining or whatever, I have to order and keep an inventory, and I stock everything, I ship
Right.
everything. It's like I'm a one man show. Uh, my wife, she does like our marketing stuff
Yeah.
on the side for me to help me out a little bit there, and she like does like our emails and stuff like that.
Awesome.
But yeah, other than that, like that's pretty much all I do. I wake
So
up every day and just do motorcycle.
yeah, that's sick. How can people find that company?
We have a actually we're on Instagram, competition underscore distributing, and
Cool.
then we have a website, competitiondisc.com,
Awesome.
DISD.com.
Man, that sounds like a fucking stressful build. Jesus.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it
like
was
we
it
don't
was.
need to go into figures, but I think like a part of this competition that people rarely kind of bring up or talk about it's the fucking cost. And this bike
Oh yeah.
especially must have been. Do you know what I mean? That's not it's not a cheap ordeal, you know?
No, no, it
Yeah.
was financially, yeah, it was a lot financially. I honestly I couldn't tell you an actual number because
Yeah.
I try not to keep track of that stuff
Yeah.
to
Fuck
be
that.
honest. Just yeah, because otherwise I'd probably just be extremely depressed and cry
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
it
Of
and
course.
never
Yeah.
be able to. But
Yeah.
I know I can tell you it was definitely a lot more than I thought it was going to be per
Yeah.
usual. Especially with the material because the entire bike is stainless steel. Um, I, I wanted to do stainless so that I didn't have to nickel plate every single piece because I had
Yeah.
the look of the bike in my head, what I wanted it to look like. And I wanted it to be like bare metal, everything exposed. You can see every linkage, every nut, every
Yeah.
bolt, that kind of thing. So we went with stainless, and stainless as a materials to work with. It's a bear to, cost wise, it's absolutely astronomical.
Yeah.
And, especially like machining and stuff, it's a pain. And the front end's so expensive. It's like embarrassing. Like I don't even,
Really.
yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
it's bad. Like cause it's all like the whole,
It's
the whole
bad.
thing's like, yeah, it's bad. The whole
uh,
thing's stainless, like the trees, everything, cause we designed the whole front end here and then, I made it here and it's like, oh my Lord, it just like the material alone. I mean, there's thousands of dollars just in material,
oh,
and then not
yeah.
including all the time that I have bending the tubing. And I have like special tubing. Core,
Yeah.
the rear. it's a trailing link front end, and we designed it off the 30s Harley Davidson hill climber.
Yeah.
Harley never had it available to the public. It was a race only machine,
Yeah.
and I've always loved that front end because it's just like it's super well. It's cool looking, and then it has that trailing link. It just gives it a
Yeah.
cool odd look to it, and so when we sized it up to fit the weight and size of that chassis and that motor and everything, I had to beef all the tubing up. So we ended up running like the main tube off the back that goes to the front. That's all like 1/4 inch wall stainless.
Wow.
So it's super heavy tubing, and
Yeah.
I wanted it to be that way because if we wouldn't have gone that thick, we would have had to put like gussets and stuff in there, and it would have kind of cluttered it up in the front. I wanted to keep that clean line, So
Yeah, of course.
just added more cost and all that, but
Yeah. So I mean,
yeah.
so how does it run?
Oh, it actually runs pretty good. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing right now. I'm tweaking. I had it all put together and ready to go for when BILTWELL showed up for our
Yeah.
deadline because everybody had a deadline to when they showed up to our house at different
Yeah.
times. So my main focus was getting it done to the way I wanted it to look aesthetically, and then obviously it had to run correctly enough to go down the road so they can film me.
Yeah.
So I did all that, but I further burdened myself with the dual carb setup. I really wanted to go dual carbs,
Cool.
and not only did dual carbs, but I wanted to do dual vintage carbs, which are the Linkerts, like what would have come on that motor in '48, the
Yeah.
M74 Linkerts. So we made our own intake manifold out of aluminum. We actually 3D printed it. So we designed a dual intake manifold, and then we wrapped the intakes around the front of the heads because the only dual intakes you can really find for a pan with the O-ring style ports is like there's like maybe one or two out there, but they're kind of like goofy looking.
Yeah.
And I wanted this to like have a full blown custom look, like a one off look on everything. So
Yeah.
we just made our own manifold, and you know that added some tricks to the trade there because
It's
now
fucking
like
wild.
yeah, like tuning
Oh,
it, that's been fun.
yeah.
And getting it to run correctly, that's been fun. But I got some things I'm trying right now with it, and I'm getting them dialed in. It's going to run. The motor actually runs really well.
Cool.
I'm just trying to get I'm trying to get it to run like perfect. That
Yeah.
way I don't have any issues or anything. But surprisingly, the bike is extremely responsive, like power wise. I think the dual carbs help because you're adding that much more fuel, but it
Yeah.
makes the motor sound pretty healthy. And we didn't really go crazy with the motor. Everything. We bored the jugs and stuff over, but we didn't do like any crazy performance cams or anything like that.
Right.
Excuse me, but the motor runs really well, and the bike like goes down the road really nice. It actually
Yeah.
handles
Cool.
really nice. Uh, I got a ton of comments about how that thing's not rideable, and then I
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
gonna,
Of course.
like get my manhood chopped off and all this
Yeah.
other
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy stuff. But I'm just like laughing. I'm like,
Yeah.
you guys are funny, But I have no problem riding it. It's got a foot clutch, suicide clutch, whatever you want to call it. I got the hand shifter over there,
Yeah.
and then I made a guard for that top sprocket because when you're sitting on the bike going down the road, your leg, you got a ton of clearance on there. But if you ever have to put your left leg on the ground,
Yeah.
your leg would come close to that sprocket. So I
Okay.
just put a guard over it that you can rest your leg right on, and there's no problems. I've been
Yeah.
turning it around and going down roads and stuff, no problem at all. So
And it's got a kicker as well, isn't it?
yeah. So
Yeah.
you can kickstart it or crank start it.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, I got electronic ignition in there. Um, all the fancy components as far as like making it run reliable as we can. Because like I like to build stuff to ride it. As much. This is the first like full blown show bike I've ever built.
Yeah.
Without the intention of like riding across country on it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's still very rideable, and I plan on riding it around here and stuff when I'm not taking it around showing it to people. So.
But what's your plan with the bike after the show?
I have actually. It's crazy. So when I posted the the one video, the first time I ever started with the inertia starter, it went absolutely crazy viral. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't, we literally didn't post it to like. I just was excited to get the thing started.
Yeah.
It was the first time I ever started the bike with the inertia starter successfully. So obviously I was extremely excited.
Yeah.
The last 7 months of my life, that's all it was, getting that to work correctly. And so I was pumped. I wish I would have known it was going to go crazy viral because, like, I didn't. I just had like a janky crank handle I made.
Yeah, yeah,
I literally bent that conduit tubing up in like 2 seconds, and
yeah.
obviously all the haters they go after that kind of stuff. So,
Of course.
but it is what it is. But the video went like crazy viral. It's like I think the one's like at like 34 million views right now,
Fuck,
and yeah,
that's
it's
crazy.
I'm
Yeah,
still blown away. It's like just absolutely mind blowing. But and it
but
had like
I get it though. Right, because it is fucking crazy.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's funny because it's like when I was doing this starter, it was doing it just because like out of soul, something that I thought would be cool.
yeah,
I wasn't
yeah,
doing it to be like, oh hey, like this, this is gonna make it really crazy. Like I was doing it just because I've like you get to hear that noise,
yeah,
you go, people are gonna be like, what's that siren noise, and then
yeah,
all of a sudden you just hear this motor crank and fire a panhead. It's like
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought that would be cool, and apparently a lot of other people liked it too. So that was pretty neat.
Tell me how it
Um,
works.
so,
How do
uh,
you work? Like, for,
so it's
pretend you're explaining to a 5-year-old.
well, to be 100% honest with you, we found the schematics for the thing because I was doing a deep dive into inertia starters, my buddy Kevin and I, when we were designing this thing, and whoever designed and built this thing is an absolutely mad genius. Like I'm telling you right
Right.
now, because
Yeah.
the size of this starter compared to what it output power wise, I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. But there's so much components inside this thing, like so many moving parts. It's nuts. Like I would never in 100 years take it apart. Like if it
Yeah.
ever
Yeah. Yeah.
stops working, I guess it's just gonna hang on the side of the bike
Yeah.
because like
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not taking it apart. But so the best way to explain it, like layman's terms, it's like a giant gear reduction
Right.
setup, and you build up a certain amount of speed, and it uses internal gears to increase your output torque. So the like when you're cranking that real high whine you hear, that's the fast side. So that's the side that's building all the speed to engage all the power into the low side.
Right.
Uh, the output ratio on that starter itself, on that particular one I have on this bike, it's 128 revolutions to one. So every 128 revolutions on the crank side is one revolution on the output side for the motor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's geared like
That's,
extreme gear reduction,
yeah.
and its torque is like through the roof because this thing was originally designed to start like 1,800 liters or 2,000 horsepower. So
Yeah. Of
starting
course.
a 60 horsepower panhead is like a bump on the radar for that thing. Actually, to be honest, the first time we ever went to go start, it was pretty funny. I was cranking it, and I've never started a motor with an inertia starter. It's my first
Yeah.
time, so I was cranking it. Like I didn't know how hard to crank it because there's no like RPM or anything. Like you can either crank it really hard or you can crank it really slow. It's just whatever you feel.
Yeah.
So I'm like cranking this thing, and I get it up to a sound where I think it's good, and I go to engage it. Like there's a lever I built for it, and you go to
Yeah.
pull it, and it shoots a plunger out into the gear set that I put on the side of the bike,
Right.
and it comes out and it hits this thing and it's just like and it just shears the shear pin right off. Like it sounds like a chainsaw. It's like
Oh
and like
shit.
it's hilarious. Like we have a video of it. My buddy are just laughing. I look at it, I'm like, oh dude, I think I just cracked the shear pin, and I didn't realize what the output torque on or anything was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I think the disengagement, like the internal brake on it, it's like 500 foot pounds. So that
Fuck.
torque output on the thing is like a little bit less than 500 foot pounds. So uh, yeah, so I ended up having to take that entire drive assembly off, and I had to
It's
go through
crazy.
everything, and I had to like weld it solid and like remachine some stuff and to get it in there. But because I was originally going to make it so it was rebuildable, and then I looked at it, and it's just not possible with the amount of shear pin length that goes into the collar for the to catch,
Right.
because it's only like it only engages so far. So the it was like 140 foot pounds. Kevin did the math for the shear pin. It was 140 foot pounds of shear, and it sheared it like it was nothing. So I had to go and just weld it solid to make it work.
Yeah.
But it's all right. It's still easy enough to rebuild if I needed to. So
Yeah. That's fucking crazy.
yeah, and like to answer your question, I totally got off topic there, but to answer your question before, like what else? So we have a lot of shows lined up for it this year. Actually, I had a lot of people reach out, so we're gonna have it at Fuel Cleveland. It'll be there. It's gonna be at Glory Days in Pittsburgh, which is a another kind of local venue to us. Our my buddy Detroit Randy, he's got his old show, the Damn Motorcycle Show. We'll have it up in Milwaukee in July at one of his events, and it'll be another one of his events in September. And then probably wherever else I go throughout the summer, we always have a lot of stuff we do. So,
So,
take it with me.
so is it a keeper?
Oh man, yeah, probably at least for now.
How could you put a
I
fucking
don't.
price on it?
I know that's the thing.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah,
don't even know what I would sell it at.
yeah.
My friend Tom, he's like one of my good friends, and he's my partner in our business here, and he has like a huge vintage motorcycle collection. He's a big knucklehead panhead guy, and he's got a big museum down in Pittsburgh. And he told me, he's like, dude, he's like, if you ever try to sell that, like that's coming here, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
It's gonna go in. He called his museum the black hole, because like whatever he buys, it never leaves. It goes in, and never comes out.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
cool.
so I don't know. We'll see. I for now, I just all the work that we put into it and the amount of man hours I have into it, I'd really like to enjoy it here for the next couple of years,
Yeah,
hopefully,
man. Yeah, definitely.
and do some riding with it. So
Sick. How are you gonna get it to Born Free?
we're actually
Because that's
so I'm gonna
fucking
load in.
coast to coast, isn't it? Where you are?
Yeah,
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 it's literally all the way across the country for me. I'm gonna load it up into a van,
yeah,
um, and then I'm gonna take a trailer with us, a small trailer, and we're gonna take a couple more bikes with us so we can ride around out there. Because this will be
cool.
my first time to Born Free. I've always wanted to go. I've been a huge fan of the event for last few years, and I just always been looking forward to it. So I'm excited to see all the bikes, because obviously the level of talent there is just absolutely crazy. And even same with BILTWELL, like
Yeah,
the guys, I really feel like the guys that are building bikes and stuff through that competition, not even just this year, but even the previous years, it's like it's a good it's a good healthy competition. Everybody's super cool, and the level of talent that BILTWELL is able to kind of pick out all this stuff. It's like it's pretty inspirational, because a lot of
yeah,
these guys are like, wow, it's like where are these guys coming from, So
yeah.
um, it's pretty cool to be a part of it.
I've said it a couple of times that the thing I love about this Built World show is like especially is you've got people like you, like absolute fucking engineer wizards, and then you've got like Colin like building this thing in his fucking storage container. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know.
And it's beautiful. You know what I mean? It's
Oh,
it's
I know
it's
that bike is
I love that. I love the contrast. You know?
right. Yeah, you get kind of like the best of every world,
Yeah.
like
You're
Colin's
like
bikes off.
3D printing parts. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's yeah,
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 yeah. Like I said, what I was trying to do is I was just trying to use like the capabilities that I have when I use
cool.
like my everyday business.
Yeah,
I kind of want to be able to transfer that to what we're doing.
yeah, fucking right.
And then it's always really cool seeing like other guys like too, like because when I first started doing stuff, that's what I did. It was like everything by hand and bending on the bench and oh, does that look right? Is that well, let's hold it up, So
Yeah, yeah,
it's cool seeing guys do that too because there's guys that can pull it off and make it look absolutely beautiful, So
yeah. Who did the paint?
actually, so my buddy Kevin, it's helped me design the bike and stuff. His brother, Woods Goods, he's on Instagram too. He did all my paint. He does all my paint work. Every single bike I paint, he paints for me. But he did the paint, and that was pretty cool too because he's the kind of guy where I just we've been working together for so many years now. Whenever I do a project, I always put all my trust into him.
Yeah,
Like I'll just kind of give him like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and then I just let him run with it, because like,
yeah,
who am I to tell an artist or whatever, like, hey, this is what you need to do. Like, I
totally.
think they should be able to portray what their thought, their image is. So like, all I really did was this. I told him I was like, I want to keep it super classy looking. which is different from our previous paint jobs and stuff. I was like, I just want to keep it clean, classy to go with the rest of the bike because there's not really a lot of paint on the bike. It's just the
Yeah.
tanks and the inertia starter. Um, and I told him the main color I wanted was like a teal color because that's like one of my favorite colors, like old
Yeah.
English style. And he mixed his own color, made it up, and did like the '50s hot rod scallop kind of look.
Yeah.
And yeah, he pulled it off, man. It looks really good. Um, yeah, especially in person. It's like I told him, I'm like, I hope you save that teal color because I want to use that again.
Yeah,
So
man.
he
No,
I
it's
think he
fucking
saved the
beautiful.
mixture for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's
he
really
killed
I think that's a really good like nugget of information for people watching this. Like for if you wanna, if you go to a painter or even if you go to somebody wanting to build you a fucking bike, like telling an artist like that exactly what you want, you're never gonna end up with the best product. It's always
No,
gonna be half what it could be. The best thing is just give the idea and then let them fucking go with it.
right. Let them
I
run with
think.
it. Yeah, because
Yeah.
otherwise you're tying their hands. It's like
Yeah, totally.
that's what they're good at. Let them run with it. I mean, obviously you don't want to like you got to give them some direction, otherwise they
Yeah.
don't even know where to start. But that's what I try to just give a vague as much as possible. Like, hey, this is the color I'm thinking, and even then, sometimes he comes back to me and goes, like, no, that color is not going to work. Like,
Yeah.
let's try this. And he'll
Yeah.
send it to me, and I'll look at it and be like, oh my god, you're right. Like,
Yeah.
and it's cool being able to work with somebody like that because it's not just like a dude I've never met or whatever. Like he's a buddy, and
Yeah.
I can just trust whatever he does for me. So.
What's your have you got a favorite bike in the competition this year? Not yours.
Uh yeah, no, I like so many of them. It's kind of a tough pick.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of. I really like Colin's bike because uh, it's like kind of like my what we usually do for business every day, like the old
Yeah.
bikes, the vintage bikes. You've got that 29,
Yeah.
and that's the first flathead Harley ever made, going into the 40 precursor to the 45. So. Uh, I really like that bike just because of the era of it. I really, I'm actually, honestly, I'm blown away by Al's bike. Um,
Yeah, man.
that thing is just like, it's just crazy because like I'm always trying to push stuff as hard as I can on my side, and then I wake up every day and I look at stuff Al's doing, and I'm like, man, like I suck.
Yeah.
And I mean that like in a respectful way,
Yeah,
like
totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
he just
yeah.
like I'm like, he's just, holy cow, man. Like, I don't think I've ever
Genius.
been so inspired by an individual. There's like one other guy like that, and he's a buddy of mine. He's actually building a bike for Born Free this year. His name's Aaron Lovelace,
Awesome.
and he's the same way. He's building a crazy VL right now that he designed the top. Well, he actually made his own cylinders. They're Coslow reproduction cylinders.
Yeah.
He put on a VL bottom end and built like his whole motor. And then he saw my inertia starter. He reached out to me. He's like, "Oh my god, that's genius!" Because he's like an aircraft nut too.
Yeah.
He's like a master engineer. And he reached out and he goes, "That's genius." He's like, "I should," he's like, "I got to do that someday." And he went and got an inertia starter. But what he ended up doing with his bike is he ended up building his own shotgun starter. So he's got like a 12 gauge shotgun starter on his bike that's gonna, you put in a 12 gauge blank, you close the breech, and you can actually fire the shell off, and that'll start the motor over.
What?
And again, yeah, and again, that's 19, early 1900, the teens all the way up into the 20s. Like they started
Yeah.
airplanes, they started tractors, they started cars, stuff with those
Like that.
blanks. So
Holy
yeah, so
shit.
that's pretty cool. Yeah, you'll have to get him on here.
Yeah,
He's a super
definitely.
cool guy. Aaron Lovelace, Lovelace Performance is his tag
Is
on Instagram.
perfect. I have no idea who's gonna win. Not that it matters.
Dude,
Everyone's built an
no,
amazing bike, but like really, like
right.
there's such a contrast in fucking builders. I got no idea.
I know you got a beautiful long bike, the Bobby pulled off.
Yeah.
Someday I got to build a long bike. I got a
Yeah.
buddy, Joe Marshall, that builds long bikes, and I love them. I think they're cool. I've always wanted to ride one and build one. I just haven't had a chance to yet. So, his bike's cool as hell. Brandon and Barney, they both built killer bikes, Knuckles and Pans, and it's like
Yeah.
what I like about their bikes too is like, you can tell those guys built those bikes to ride and actually pound miles on. And
Yeah,
that I really respect that because that's like I said, this is like the first time I built a bike like not to that degree. I've always
yeah,
tried to build like just a straight up rider,
yeah,
and they managed to pull it off and managed to make them look super cool at the
yeah, man.
same time. So hats off to those guys because I know they're probably going to ride the absolute crap out of them,
Yeah,
and
man.
I think they did a great job on them. So.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Seriously,
Oh yeah, no.
it's
Hey,
it's
thanks for
it's been a
having
blast
me.
having you.
Yeah, are you going to be able to make it over here at all for any
I'm
of the
really
shows?
hoping
Or
to. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I'll have an answer within a week.
Oh,
I've
cool.
just got to arrange some work stuff and all that
Gotcha.
boring shit. But
Well, I
yeah,
know I saw you were trying to come over earlier in the year
yeah, man.
for what EDR or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
didn't work out, but hopefully
Nah.
you can make it over.
Yeah. I mean that whole like vaccination thing that's gone now. So I just need to. Yeah, it's just personal shit. I just need to arrange and change my flights. So luckily, when I couldn't get over for EDO, I didn't lose any money on my flights. I could just rearrange them. So I've like rearranged them for like a random date in September. So
Oh,
I'm
cool.
gonna see if I can just rearrange them again for June. But
Get
it's
over
like
here a little
3 weeks
earlier.
away, isn't it? Like three
Oh my
weeks
God,
now.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I got to leave. I'm gonna be 2 weeks pretty much. I'll be leaving like on Monday, and we're gonna
Yeah.
go out a little early. We're gonna try to do some riding out there, and then I got to meet up and do a couple photo shoot stuff. So it's gonna be here before you know it. It's
Yeah,
like
man. How long does it take you
kind
to
of
get
getting
from there to
surreal.
there?
If you drive straight through, I believe it's like 30 some hours. I'll split it into a couple days probably.
Yeah.
I used to actually like in my previous job, I used to like when I was working in the States, I would drive straight through or, from coast to coast. And it's absolutely brutal. It's like,
Yeah.
our country's so freaking big and spanned out.
Yeah.
Um, it just kills you as far as time. Like earlier this year, I drove to Vegas and I think I split it up into 2 days. And even
Yeah.
that's kind of long anymore. It's like
Yeah.
16, 17-hour days to get out there. So,
Fuck that. That's crazy.
yeah.
Like, just
Yeah.
driving. I think on a bike and that you can split it up and have, but just driving, nah. Ugh.
No, I know, and that's what we rode. I'm big into FXRs, and we did a thing called the Triple Crown about 3 years ago now, where you go to like East Coast, West Coast, and Sturgis all in the same year.
Right.
It's like a total of it's like close to like 10,000 miles,
Yeah.
and you do it all on your bike. You don't work on them or anything, or you don't trail them or anything. You just ride the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
So we did that, and man, was that awesome! Like
Yeah.
riding out there on a bike compared to driving in the car is like 10 times better. I'd
Yeah.
rather do that
Totally.
any day. So,
I've just been offered a totally stock 85 FXR for $2,000.
really?
Yeah, it runs, it's good, it's got title, everything. And it's
Dude,
got
you better go get that.
it's got the rare fucking 7-spoke mags.
No way, the Morris mags.
Yeah,
Dude,
man.
that's crazy. That's
Two
crazy. So
grand.
I have
Yeah.
you better go get that, man.
Yeah.
Holy cow. I so that's so funny you say that. So I actually the first FXR I built is an 82 and I
Yeah.
converted it to an RT so I had the fairing because that's my touring bike.
Right.
And the 82 is the only year they didn't have the bungs for the fairing. But anyways, long story short, I ended up converting it and putting the 7-spoke mags on that bike because I'm a huge fan of the seven
Yeah,
spoke
that's it.
mags. So yeah,
Awesome, man.
so that's
Yeah.
cool. You should go get it.
It's totally stock as well. Like nothing's been changed on it. Yeah. I need to
Oh
see
wow,
it. The only problem it's been sat outside for a little bit, but starts,
yeah,
stops, I can clean it up. So
yeah.
yeah, man,
You can
I'll do
always
it. I'll
polish it
send
up.
you a photo. Yeah, I'll send you a picture.
Yeah, for sure. I'm interested to see it now. It's like
Yeah, man.
because I'm working. I have a buddy that lives over in Germany,
Yeah.
a good friend of mine, and he's big in FXR. So we're talking about coming over there probably next year and
Cool.
doing some riding, and jumping around as much as we can, country to country over there. So
Awesome, man. Yeah,
love
that'd
the
be good.
FXRs.
Yeah, sick. Cool. Right, I'm gonna
Heck
let you
yeah.
get back to your day, man. Thank you
All
so
right,
much
buddy.
for coming on. I really do appreciate it. And
Hey, no
hopefully I'll
problem.
see you in 3 weeks.
Yeah, sounds good. Safe
Awesome.
travels.
Thanks a lot, mate. See you later.
Yep. Bye.